Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Inshallah, you guys are doing well. Happy Jummah. Assalamu alaikum. Inshallah, you guys are doing well. Today, we have a special guest. And as you guys seen on my stories, we're going to talk about self-esteem. And the best person that I could think of was to bring Sadia Yunus. And I'm just going to give you a short little intro, a little bit about her. And then we'll bring her up, inshallah. So Sadia is a licensed marriage and family therapist, as well as a consultant and self-development coach. She has over 10 years of experience with coaching, or actually providing therapy for individuals, couples, families, and groups. And Sadia owns a private practice in Long Island, New York, and she offers also online therapy for anyone in the states of New York and Florida. And she currently lives in New York with her husband and 4 kids. Now, I was looking through her website and reading about her bio, which I could spend like 15 minutes on, but something that really stood out for me that I don't really see in a lot of therapist pages is her focus to inspire clients to grow in inner strength, to move beyond doubts and fears and obstacles to reach their full potential. And I thought that was really amazing, because a lot of times we think that, we go to therapy for just trauma, but how about becoming our best self? And I really like that about her. And in her Instagram, that's a lot of her content reflects that, to really empower us. Sadia has been doing self-esteem workshops for kids. My daughter actually took it, and we're going to talk about it. And let me bring her up. Sadia here. Let me see where she is. Hang on, guys. Sadia, where are you? Okay, I invited her to join. Assalamu alaikum.
Hey,
How
hey,
are you?
Assalamu alaikum. How are you?
Good. How about you?
Good,
Are
alhamdulillah.
are you staying
Excited.
warm from the winter storm?
Oh, we're trying. Oh my goodness. It's so cold. It's like
Yeah.
-1 feel.
Well,
It's just like, I'm a
I
summer
was trying
person,
to,
so I miss
I
it.
was, yeah, I was trying to explain to my kids how cold it is, and they're just like, okay, I don't get it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Where do you live again?
In Southern California?
Okay, nice. Lucky you.
Yeah. My daughter took the self-esteem workshop that you had offered,
Uh-huh.
and she really liked it. She enjoyed it. And that's why I wanted you to come on and talk to us about self-esteem in kids, because I don't think there's any parent out there who says, nah, self-esteem, I don't care.
Yeah.
That's something that every parent wants their kids to have: strong self-esteem and high self-esteem. So can we start off by talking about just what is self-esteem and how important it is?
Yeah, absolutely. Self-esteem is really what you think about yourself, what you believe about yourself, how you see yourself, right? How you view yourself.
Mhm.
And we don't know that until we really check in. We give ourselves time to kind of listen and to hear, what do I really feel about myself? And sometimes with kids, I just say, like look in the mirror. And when you look at yourself, what are the first thoughts that come up? And for adults too, right? If we don't really know, if we're not in tune with ourselves, we can just look in the mirror, and a lot of times it's our physical selves, right? Those thoughts
Mhm.
that will come up first, but it helps us to be aware of, how do I really feel about myself? And so we
Mhm.
can have that high self-esteem, which is believing in ourselves and seeing ourselves in a positive light. The
Mhm.
low self-esteem, putting ourselves down. And of course, it's a whole scale. So it's
Mhm.
important to know for us as adults, and then also to know for our kids,
Mhm.
where are they on that scale?
Mhm. And so do you think that if they have a high self-esteem, if they think highly of themselves, that they're going to aspire to more, or they're going to take more chances, and they're going to believe in themselves?
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah. So much of it, like our inner voice has so much power
Mm-hmm.
over not just how we think, but how we act, right? What opportunities or chances we're going to go for. Um, and so with that high self-esteem, there's more risk taking, there's more confidence, there's more taking chances. Is that I believe I can do this. I believe I can take this chance. I believe I can be good at soccer, or so there's that. That's really the foundation, right? The foundation to kind of grow and build on. If that is kind of crumbling, then it's tough to build upon that,
Mm-hmm.
achievements or
Yeah.
success or relationships. It
Yeah.
affects all different areas.
Some kids, I feel like maybe the parents believe in them, like, yeah, you can do it. Come on, you can do it. But the kids don't believe that. Where does that come from?
That's a good question. I think I would be curious to know
Mm-hmm.
more from the child. And I think that lens of curiosity is so important for us as parents.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we'll automatically, if our kid says like, oh, I don't think I could do that, maybe our automatic response is, you can do it, right? But how about take that lens of curiosity to find out from our child, like, what is that about? Where is that voice coming from? Where did that thought get implanted into their minds?
Mm-hmm.
And so taking that lens of curiosity to really find out, like, where did that thought come from? And they'll share with you, like, oh, like I was playing on the playground and this kid told me like I couldn't do it. And so now you know what to tackle, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's by us as parents kind of jumping in and just saying, no, you can do it, you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
They've got that thought implanted within them, and we're not tackling the actual thought. So it can be completely opposite, where the kid doesn't believe they can, and the parent is doing all they can to throw on
Yeah.
this, positivity. You
Yeah.
can do it. I believe in
Mm-hmm.
you. But that's where the whole conversation of intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation comes
Mm-hmm.
in, right? Where we're trying to give them that um, outside validation and everything, which of course is so important.
Mm-hmm.
But we've got to tackle the inside, the
Mm-hmm.
inner sense of self.
And so getting curious is the first thing that we should do as parents.
Yeah.
If we feel like, okay, our kids are being negative, or they're shying away from things that we think that they know how to do.
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And a lot of times it's things that we've said to them that we don't realize that we were putting them down,
Yeah.
or they feel that way. So I'm going to tell you something that I observed with my daughter, and it was amazing. It was
Mm.
earth shattering for me. Um, Sometimes, and I think all parents kind of we do this, naturally sometimes, maybe me more, but I would correct my daughter, not correct her, but I would, in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm telling her a better way to do it next time. So I'll say, oh, next time, can you do this? Can you do it this way? Can you do it that way? And all of those little suggestions, because, I'm like her mentor and I'm teaching her, and we're supposed to be teaching our kids.
Mm-hmm.
So in my teaching, I didn't realize that I wouldn't just, like, let's say she empties a dishwasher, and I'll say, oh, next time can you put the cup on top? Next time can you do this? So all these little suggestions,
Yeah.
they add up. And one time, my daughter, and I had mentioned this before, that I was combing her hair and there's a big knot. I said, next time just come to me sooner so then I can get the knot up. And she looked at me and she was like, can you uh, do you always have something negative to say, Mom? And
Mm.
I'm thinking, in my mind, I was like, it wasn't negative. It was just information. It was just feedback. That's what I thought in my mind. But then I stopped and I was like, okay, no, listen to her. So I said, tell me more. Tell me.
Mm.
What else are you feeling? What else? Tell me more. And she laid it on me. And I was thinking, I was like, what hit me was that, oh my gosh, what she said to me at age 10 is what I said to my mom at age 12. That triggered it, or it reminded me of something that I told my mom. And
Mm-hmm.
then I turned to my daughter and I'm like almost crying, and I'm just like, how does that make you feel? And what she said to me totally broke my heart. She
Mm-hmm.
said, it makes me feel like I'm not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that's how I felt. And so this dialogue that me and my daughter had, it, I felt like, okay, it broke my heart. But you know what? It showed me light into my own self and something that I had to be conscious of. So the next few days, I felt like I was walking on eggshells because I didn't know what to say and what not to say. So then I said to myself, okay, what could I have said instead of telling her to come to me sooner? And then you know what the response was, what I realized? I didn't have to say anything. I didn't have to. I don't have to always say something.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I could just let it play out and let the natural consequence come. Or like she kind of learned that, yeah, next time I should probably go to mom earlier. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't always have to say something.
Right. Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Because that's such a practical example of like,
Mhm.
whereas parents, you're helping, right? You
Yeah.
you think
Yeah.
you're helping and you're guiding them and you're mentoring, right?
Mhm.
But as a child, right, the child's brain and the child's mind, they're hearing that criticism,
Yeah.
which to
Yeah.
you it's a suggestion, it's an
Yeah.
suggestion for
Yeah.
improvement. But
Yeah.
that's how our brains work as adults. Like if somebody's like, oh, next time could you do this, then we really
Yeah.
think, okay, yeah, sure, like I'll try to do that next time. A child's brain is, I'm not good enough, and I didn't do it right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that was something that I learned through her
Yeah.
because I gave her space to talk. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that was just something huge that happened in
Mm-hmm.
our life last year, which I was just like, wow, I'm so thankful for that.
Yeah, yeah,
And
it's
it and
revelation.
imagine a 10-year-old thinking they're not good enough. How are they going to be when they're 20?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah.
What
Well,
are the self-limiting beliefs that they're going to have about
right.
themselves? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
In that moment of feeling like, okay, I want to give them a suggestion, it
yeah.
can be a good technique to ask them,
Mhm.
what do
Yeah.
you think about how you did that? What do you think about how
Mhm.
you loaded the dishwasher?
Mhm.
And they can look at it, and so it's them assessing themselves, and they can
Yeah.
be like, oh, I could have done this differently, or I think
Yeah.
I did a great job, and following their lead of how, and
Mhm.
that focuses more on the sense of self,
Mhm.
instead of what my mom or what my parent thinks of me.
Yeah, exactly.
Shifting their focus.
Yeah. When you see clients, where do you think a lot of their low self-esteem comes from? Is it from child? Does a lot of it stem from childhood?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mhm.
All of it.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. It
So
goes
it's
back to,
really the things that sometimes we don't even say things, the way we carry ourselves, the way we look at something what our children do.
mm-hmm.
It gives them feedback about what we think.
Yeah.
And a
Yeah.
lot of times they're always looking for our approval. Can you talk a little bit about that? And that, yeah, they're looking for our approval, but at what point does it get to be like, okay, it's okay. It doesn't matter what I think. What do you think?
Yeah. And that's the technique, so if the kid is showing you their artwork, right, or showing you the outfit that they put on, like, oh, look at me, right? So immediately from a very young age, 1, 2, 3 years old, to be like, oh, what do you think of you? Let's go to the mirror. And so that you take them to the mirror and shift their focus, that for them, what they think about themselves is more important.
Mhm. So you're giving them tools to um, have intrinsic motivation. They're
Yes.
looking within themselves so they don't seek validation from everybody else.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then when we do praise them and encourage them because we want to give that, right, as parents, we're more focused on details, right? Like I like that red that you used, instead of like, you are a great artist, or you did a good job. And so it's less about me giving approval of who they are and more about the actions that were taken.
And I know a lot of parents, they might say to their kids, oh, you're so smart. You are so smart.
Mm.
And I see some of those kids. Um, I think I did that with my oldest, obviously. And so I see that later on, he was more hesitant to try things. He didn't want to basically mess up that reputation of I'm so smart,
Hmm.
because maybe he does something and it doesn't turn out good. Does that mean he's not smart
Hmm.
anymore?
Yeah. Yeah. So just being conscious of like the labels, right, that
Yeah.
we're putting on them.
Yeah.
you're quiet, you're shy, you're this. And so that could really stick to them and
Mhm.
focus more on like, oh, like you worked really hard on this
Mhm.
test.
Mhm.
And how do you feel about this? What do you think about that grade that you
Mhm.
got? Or your
Yeah.
effort. I'm focusing more on effort, right? Rather than
Mhm.
results.
Mhm. And I think in just growing up or in our culture where we see the opposite of that, we don't really see that all the time. It's usually like, oh, look what so and so did, and it's a lot of external. Do you think that contributes to kids growing up to be people pleasers?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If there's that constant comparison with other kids, then that puts that into the child as well to now compare themselves to others. And when we compare ourselves to others, we're focusing on the good that the other person did, and so that can
Yeah.
immediately bring a reaction of feeling down or feeling bad about yourself. So it's highlighting the self and the efforts that you're making,
Yeah.
less of a focus on others, for sure.
And I think parents use that technique to just encourage, like, oh, look at so and so, next time you can get that first place, or look how much effort she put in. And we think that, oh, the child's going to be like, oh, yeah, you know what? I do want to make that effort. And even if they do, it's because they're comparing, right?
Right. But it does the complete opposite, right?
Mm-hmm.
It puts that negative sense of self as that person is good and I'm not. And I'm not good
Mm-hmm.
enough because I didn't do that.
Yeah.
So we think it's encouraging, but it's actually demoralizing.
Yeah. And recently, a couple of years ago, I was reading a book and I realized that they were talking about different things that hold people back, like perfectionism, people pleasing, and all of these. And I read this one description and I was like, wow, I think I fit all of these. And
Mm-hmm.
then I read the label and it was people pleasing. And it was just a big shock to me. But everything that, I'm recalling and I'm just like, oh my gosh, of course I am. Like, why would I be any different?
Sure. That people
Yeah.
pleasing is like, so another way, a deeper way of looking at it is codependency,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that people pleasing tendency comes from codependency, where we're so dependent on another.
Mm-hmm.
And so you kind of lose your own sense of self in that when you're so dependent on another. And
Mm-hmm.
parents train their kids, not knowingly, not willingly
Yeah.
necessarily, but to become this way, to be so dependent on
Mm-hmm.
another. They can't think
I
for
think
themselves.
because, yeah, we want their compliance. We want them to listen. So
Yeah.
then we do all these kinds of things to actually get them. Basically, it's almost like a form of manipulation, but we don't think of it that way.
Right.
That we're trying to manipulate their behavior into them acting a certain way.
Yeah. We want that compliance with
Yeah.
a good kid and not
Yeah.
allowing them space to be who they
Mhm.
are
Mhm.
and appreciate them for who they are.
And I think that one of the reasons for that is because it's convenient, because we have so many other things to do. We have so many other obligations that it's just easier if they can just listen and like follow your lead and
Sure.
not make a fuss, right? Because
Sure.
we have this agenda for the day and it's like they're holding us back.
hmm Then we're also like creating these kind of like robots in the sense of like
Mhm.
they are going to face so many challenges going out into the world on their own.
Mhm.
You know, that
Mhm.
self-doubt can be
Mhm.
paralyzing. And then
Yeah.
that parent-child relationship being the first one, we're training them for all other relationships. So that
Wow.
codependency will then repeat itself in other
Wow.
relationships.
Um, what do you think about parents who are struggling with self-esteem, high self-esteem? Um, and then they want their kids to have a high self-esteem, even though they don't. What's some advice that you would give to them?
Do the work.
Yeah. So as parents, we have to do our own work.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Be in therapy, regular weekly therapy to do your
Mhm.
own work, right?
Mhm.
And really, there's a book that comes to mind, Parenting from the Inside Out by Dr.
Mhm.
Dan Siegel. And it's
Yeah.
really about doing the work on the inside, right? Before
Mhm.
you can be the parent that you want to be for your kid. And a lot of times parents will just focus on their kids alone and kind
Mhm.
of, just go about life. Of course, we're so busy. We have all kinds of things going on. We'll put the kids
Mhm.
in these classes, but it's really that most, the formative, the most impactful relationship is the one that we have with them, the one that they have with us. So we've got to do the work. If I have low sense of self, that is going to impact my kids for sure, and everybody around me. So I've got to be in individual therapy to uplift myself so that I have that strong sense of self.
Yeah. Can you give us an example of some ways that it could impact kids if a parent has low self-worth?
Sure. A lot of times it can be a trigger when I see that in my kid. Maybe my kid is like feeling a little low about themselves, or maybe they're like, I don't know if I can do it. It's an immediate trigger. And so the body reacts, the body will react, the mind will react, and now I may come out in anger or frustration. What do you mean you can't do this? Right? And so that then I'm not able to be in that calm state that is really needed to be present and to connect with my child. So I'm going to be triggered, I'm going to be overreactive, and now that's going to negatively impact my child. Yeah.
And we see a lot of when the kids kind of hold back, then the parents force them to do certain things. So if there's a child who's, oh, I don't want to touch that animal, they'll be like, oh, no, now you're going to, because I don't want you to be fearful because I used to be. They're projecting their own fears or insecurities.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there's that phrase of like, parent your child based on what they need and what's good for them, and not on what you're feeling in the moment. And in order to do that, I've got to be self-aware. I've got to know what I'm feeling in the moment and, how that is going to impact them. Maybe a kid, they spill milk, how am I going to be in a calm, state to be like, okay, no problem. Let's clean it up together versus, oh my gosh, and like feeling overwhelmed and then, creating, this trauma out of such a small incident, but it will create trauma in the child. And so I've got to do my own work. Absolutely. 100%. So important.
Yeah. And having these triggers, I feel like these triggers are a blessing, because then it gives us opportunity to look at what's really bothering me, what's really going on. Yeah. Why did I react like that? Yeah. And asking ourselves and being, one of the things that I really believe in is being introspective as parents. So then that can help us do the work that we need. Because maybe I didn't know I was a people pleaser, or maybe I didn't know I had certain codependencies until I got triggered. So I'm thankful for those triggers. I'm thankful for my kids showing me those things, because I don't know if I would have known otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that trigger, right? It's the symptom. So the trigger leads to the symptom of getting upset or frustrated. And then there's something way deeper that came from our own childhoods, right? And so really understanding when was the last time I felt this way? Or when was the first time I felt this way? And so really going back into our own childhood, when I felt this way, whether it was overwhelmed or frustrated or triggered in some way, and that'll give us insight into where it stems from. And then giving our kids the same thing. If they're overreacting or getting angry or there's a trigger for them, it's not willful disobedience, which a lot of parents will be like, okay, they're doing this on purpose. They're this is just the kid. They always, act out, we put labels on them. Why is this a trigger for them? And what's going on? And when was the last time they reacted this way? And what was going on then? So going back, history is so important. Yeah. If it's hysterical, it's historical.
Yeah, I heard that. That's so true. And one last thing that I wanted to mention was that it seems as if it's easier, or not, maybe it's not easier, but I see more moms and women doing the inner work. And I think sometimes it's really hard for dads to dig deep. Have you noticed that? And the difference in like men and women?
I think overall, definitely. But I'm seeing a shift, which is exciting. I'm seeing a lot more men and fathers reaching out for therapy And
That's good.
I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful for the
Mhm.
future that more and more fathers, will reach out and will
Mhm.
do the
Mhm.
inner work.
Mhm.
But definitely overall, for sure,
Mhm.
more women, more mothers are, you know, pushing themselves to do that inner work for sure.
Yeah. And I have three boys and a daughter, but I see that some of my boys, they'll hold it in more. They'll just
Mhm.
act like it doesn't bother them, or they'll act out, or they'll laugh it off, but they're actually more sensitive. And it's almost like they're masking it,
Yeah,
So if something really bothers them, instead of crying, they might just hold it in.
sure.
And I was just getting curious about that and giving them space, like, it's okay. This is so. Then the more that I gave them permission, but gave them space, like, it's okay how you feel. It's okay to feel that way.
Yeah.
If you're upset, you can, and then I saw that. Then I saw the crying, and I could see that, other family members may have come in and be like, oh, boys don't cry, or like, it's
Mhm.
okay, or trying to fix that. But then letting them, kind of um, giving my kids permission that no, you can feel all these feelings.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's tough because even as parents, we may be giving them that message, the boys, that you can cry, you can let it out, you can show your emotions. But then society, right,
Exactly.
is putting in this message that males cannot do that. And so
Yeah.
it's a lot that they're up against.
Yeah, yeah. And that's exactly what I experienced, because and I said at my home we're allowed to do that, and I tell them all the time, but I see their friends, or just in general, they are observing and they're looking at how the reactions of men around them.
Yeah.
And it's really like an uphill battle, like you said.
Yeah, and then just finding an outlet that they do feel comfortable, that they can open up.
Mhm.
Maybe it's
Mhm.
journaling. Maybe it is
Mhm.
that private expression
Mhm.
of emotions, and that can be
Mhm.
okay also,
Mhm.
as long as they're given an outlet and they find an outlet for them.
Mhm. I'm so glad you came on, and we're talking about this it's such an important topic, because, like you said, everybody that you see in your on your all your clients, it all of it, you said, stems from like the childhood.
Yes.
And here we are as parents, and we have children, and we can have a positive impact in their self-esteem.
Hmm.
Can you just, before you go, talk about the self-esteem workshop that you have for kids?
Sure. It's something I love doing. I have such a fun time with the kids. So every month it's a children's self-esteem workshop. It's 1 hour on focusing on what is self-esteem, so helping them to understand what it is, the inner voice, and then being aware of that inner voice, how to kind of speak to themselves in a kind and loving way. We watch some videos, we talk, we laugh, we play games, we do an art activity. And the art activity is always eye-opening because it helps
Yeah.
me see what the kid is thinking. They get creative, right, with the art, of course, but then also the words,
Yeah.
the kind words that they say to themselves.
Wow.
So yeah, so the upcoming workshop is this Tuesday, so everyone
Yeah.
can look into that and register,
Yeah.
and it really makes a difference. It focuses on the kid and uplifting their self-esteem, and that's really what they
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it is something that my daughter came out of, and she really loved it.
need.
And I suggest everyone to at least have one of their kids sign up, or please share with your family, friends. This is something that all parents, as parents, it's an obligation, and it's
Mhm.
something that we want for our kids to have later on in life.
Yeah,
And these are the times that we invest in, and really plant those seeds of high self-worth.
absolutely. Hmm.
Jazakallah khair for coming and talking to us about such an important topic.
Thank you so much. I look forward to having more conversations in the future.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Care.
If you guys have any questions, please feel free to DM us. And I think there was somebody who had a question. Yes, this will be saved. And one of the things that I just want to make sure you guys understand is that self-esteem is so important. Like Sadia said, if you go to therapy, it all comes back to this. And her workshop that she does for kids is from ages 6 and up. And you could look on her Instagram and sign up, go in her bio and sign up, sign your kids up. It's something that you won't regret. My kids really loved it. Jazakallah khair, everybody. Talk to you guys soon. Assalamu alaikum.